Buddy Scout Crafty here again. The sun is starting to set. It's a good time to get down to the basement. It's still a bit warm, but let's see what projects we can get started for today. Okay, I'd like to start off today's video by talking about a couple days ago I made a video on the dead-on hammer, and there was some speculation why I removed the mill surface up from the face of the hammer, so I thought we would go through that and clear up some misconceptions about what that milling is for and why it was designed. So let's have a discussion. Here was that hammer in question, and what happened was this came with a milled face, and I took it down and made it a smooth face, and a lot of people wondering why, or had questions about it. And let's start with the beginning. Now, when the average person or the average layman thinks of hammer, this is what you think of, and this is a what they call a claw hammer. It has a claw to it. It is a carpenter's hammer, and you could see this design was predominant it lasted for 100 years unchanged, and this design was responsible for building more houses than any other hammer there was. And it was between 14 and 16 ounces, and this one's about 14 inches long, and this was your standard go-to hammer. Smooth face and a type of claw in the back for removing nails. Now, specialty hammers are nothing new. They've been around since the 1800s. But what happened was this hammer kind of fell out of, in the 60s and 70s, framers, which were carpenters that just did one specific type of job, and they basically put frames up, which is taking 2x4s and building framing out a home, a structure, a building. And they tended to like a longer handled hammer that had a little bit more weight to it, because when you're driving nails all day long, this is your standard carpentry nail, and then sometimes you had larger nails like this. But if with a larger hammer, you could swing it only 2 times or 3 times to drive a nail, whereas with the standard old-fashioned regular hammer, you might have had to use 4 to 5 blows. So at the end of the day, it was less driving, and they could work faster, so they came out with the longer, heavier hammers. Now, many of the hammers that they came out with at the time just had a longer straight handle. Later on, they came out with a curved handle. A lot of carpenters like that because you can choke up on it, use it for different things, and then they came out with the different style claws. This is a straight claw, obviously, that the framers tend to like because they could stab a piece of wood and pull it over. Again, waffled face or milled faced heads are nothing new. They've been around since the 1800s, but they tended to be a little bit more flat, and this was actually a good design. But then towards the 70s, they started coming out with the really aggressive waffle face, for the simple reason that when you have such a long hammer and you're swinging, a lot of times your accuracy is going to be compromised. And because your accuracy is compromised, they wanted a larger head so that anywhere the nail would hit would be considered a good strike. And by having these waffles or milled points put in here, you could have it wouldn't slip off the nail. So now you're thinking, well, that sounds pretty good to me. Why wouldn't I want a waffle face on my hammer? Well, let me show you the disadvantages of a waffle face. Now you can see here, if you should miss, this is where the term waffle comes out, because it looks like a waffle. If you should miss, or if you want to drive a nail in flush to the surface, you're always going to have some waffling around the nail. So that means you can only use this for areas that won't be seen, like inside walls or, of course, framing. One other thing to consider is that when a waffle head or the milled surface is new, you can see it looks like this, but after a few, not that long, it starts to get flattened down a little bit. And depending on where your strike zone is, it'll get flatter and flatter in one area, and it'll make for an uneven surface. Again, leading to twists and turns and bent nails and things like that. Again, hammer manufacturers love the fact that when your waffle face hammer gets mashed up, you come back and buy another one. It all boils down to personal preference. Now, if you have this hammer and somebody says, hey, could you come over and help me do a deck? You can come over and do that. Can't do that with this hammer, because the minute you hit his new deck with that waffle face, you're going to be asked to leave, which maybe is a good thing. And there's a lot of reasons why I prefer a smooth face over it. I'm not a framer. If you do framing all day long, then you could say, hey, I like it, and I buy a new hammer every year, and it's good for me. Excellent. But for the average person, for the average homeowner, I think you're better off with a smooth face. Okay, let's talk about which handle material is better, wood, fiberglass, or steel. I'm just kidding. We don't want to start a fight here. wood is the best. Okay, next up, a good friend of the show by the name of Martin. He picked up a stiletto nail puller, and it was titanium. And let me show you a couple of these. Now, over the years, these nail pullers have become more and more popular. And originally, they were called cat paws, and they were just basically a little cup at the bottom here. But now, they come out with this, and they call these like bear paws, or this one here is a ClawBar by Stiletto. This one here is stainless. Look how nice that finish is. However, I wouldn't recommend the stainless because it got bad reviews. I don't know what batch it was, but a lot of these are snapping, especially at the end. So until they straighten it out, I would stay away from the stainless. And here's a Craftsman one that's adjustable. You can see you can move it in different positions. Usually made by Crescent overseas, but the one we're talking today is this one here. Martin bought this one here. It's a stiletto crowbar. It's titanium. Now, I love titanium. I have a lot of titanium stuff, so I had to, when this came around, I picked it up. They're not cheap. I mean, when I say not cheap, like in the $70 range or more, they're expensive. And this is like 40-something or $50. Crazy, right? When you can get one of these for $18, and they'll probably do the same, if not better, especially than this one. So the titanium one, though, is just ultra cool. But Martin said that, see how that finishes? It's like a sandblasted finish. He was a little disappointed because he saw this one, you know, the stainless, and he was like, that's what he was hoping for. And then this thing comes in the mail, and he's like, ugh, you know. So he wanted to know if it could be polished. Now, I'll tell you the truth, I never polished titanium before. I'm sure there's some kind of dust that'll give you some kind of crazy cancer if you breathe it, whatever the case is. So what we're going to do today is we're going to try and polish this out. And if I can do it, then Martin can do it. Because, but if I can't do it, at least Martin will save his time. So let's get to that. Okay, we only got a couple minutes on here, but did you notice the sparks? Man, I never seen sparks that color before. It's like a super white spark. So I'm gonna hit it over here and let you see the sparks, the color of the sparks. Pretty cool. Now you know my favorite part. Remember what this ClawBar looked like before we started. Okay, we're calling this project done, and I have to tell you something. I got 2 hours into grinding this thing, and this was the hardest metal, and it still didn't come out like the way I like, you know, the steel that I like to do, but I got it down to somewhat polished. But there are areas here, like around here, where these little bends are, you just cannot get in, and there's no way you can, although the top came out nice and everything, and there's just certain places you can't do because the belt sander, you know, I went through 5 belts. You would touch this to the belt, and then within 2 minutes, the belt all the grit is gone. It's like titanium is hard. It's no joke. But 5 belts later, a lot of polishing compound, a lot of elbow grease, and you know, there it is. Now, again, this is the one that, this is their stainless. Stainless is a breeze to do compared to this. So you could see the difference, you know, and what it was before. You know, it was a sandblasted material. And the other thing is you got to keep cleaning the belt because whatever that's, I don't know if it's a powder coating, it kept clogging the belt. And I did a little red in the titanium. But let's show you how this works. So, a little bit of red I got to take off there. Now there's a few ways you can use this tool to get a nail out that might be flush with the surface of the work. One way is if you take this little ring like this and you place it over the nail like this and then bang down on it, and then that'll make a little recess around the nail. And then what you do is you take this end here and bang on the back of it and get under it. And then once you get under it, you could pry it up, as you could see, and raise the nail up like that. Another way you could use it is with this one here and bang on this side place it over here behind the nail, take your hammer, place it under here, and you can see it'll get under the head of the nail, and then you just use it like a pry bar and pry the nail up that way. So there's a few ways you can use this. They do come in really handy, especially the guys that use them all the time. They really know how to use them good. So in closing, Martin, I hope this helps you out in your quest, whether or not you're going to polish one out or not. I could tell you one thing, it feels 100% better. I mean, it's so smooth and silky to the touch, but it does have a different titanium. It is a bear to grind and polish. So be prepared. If you're going to do it, you do have an undertaking and a challenge. So anyway, thanks very much for tuning in, everybody. I appreciate it. I hope you have a nice day. Take care now. Bye-bye.